Welcome everybody, Brother Dan Goodwin here. This is the God's Found Jubilee program, and I have a special guest with me today, Brother Jeff Mote, all the way from Alabama, and he is an author. He's written this book that you see on your screen. This is called Once Upon an Apocalypse. I have a copy right here in the studio. This is a 3-volume set, right?
Yes, sir.
And this is book 1, book 2, and book 3. And hey, they call that a trilogy, right? And so this is a book about an EMP going off. Now it's a fiction book, but based upon what could possibly be going to happen here in the future. And I wrote a couple things down here I wanted to share with you. But this is a book that was written some time ago, I think in the 90s or maybe somewhere in there. This is a book called 1 Second After. Newt Gingrich did the foreword. This book is about an EMP attack, and Brother Jeff told me that he's read this book. I don't know if the book is 100% accurate or not, but I do know that Congress interviewed these guys, and these guys were trying to warn our country about an EMP attack and what would happen. It'd be devastating. And there's also been 2 movies, Brother Jeff. I'm not sure that you have watched these, but back I think in the 70s or 80s, a guy named Patrick Swayze. Are you familiar with that movie?
We're talking about Red Dawn.
Right, Red Dawn.
Red Dawn's that's a classic. I very much enjoyed that movie.
And that was about an EMP attack.
Well, actually, it was about an invasion from a Russian.
And it was Russia.
Russian invasion in the United
Now
States.
they redid that movie recently, and I forget the actors are in it. I think it's still called Red Dawn. It's a different actor. But they changed the bad guys from Russia to Korea, North Korea.
Yes.
And that was an EMP attack. I don't know how accurate, but those things make you think about how serious things could be. But when I read your books, Brother Jeff, I'll tell you what, and I've studied this, and I've paid attention over the years to the EMP possibilities, but I've never been quite to the place that I am now where I understand how serious it is. Brother Jeff's book starts out with some people driving their car, and all of a sudden the car shuts off and they pull over the side of the road, and they discover after a while that hey, this is what my dad told me about. This is an EMP, because everything shuts off. But before we get into your book, Brother Jeff, we want to get into you a little bit. I want to find out who you are. I want the audience to discover who you are, and we're going to give how they can get a copy of the book here in a little while here. But first of all, let's tell the folks who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your family and your life and what you do.
All right. Well, I was born in Louisiana and lived there much of my life, and then we moved to Alabama, where I'm at now. You know, I don't know if you remember the song "Oh Susanna." Oh Susanna. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Well, that was my dad. He went to Louisiana, met my mother, who is a Louisiana native. They got married, and he brought her back to the boonies in Alabama. So I'm a Roll Tide guy. Roll Tide.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm an electrical engineer and a master electrician by training and an author by accident.
Okay.
It just happened.
So the trade you have kind of added to your understanding of being able to write a book like this.
It did. It did in a lot of different ways, and also I've been a student of preparedness for probably 40 years.
Okay, preparedness meaning
well, different
survival
aspects,
stuff.
Survival stuff, but just the preparedness in general. Back in 1977, I'm going to date myself here now. When I was in high school, I read a book by Pat Frank titled "The Last Babylon," and it's and I recommend that book to everyone. It's about basically World War III in the United States, people surviving in the United States in the aftermath, and that had a deep impact on me. So I've always been studying preparedness of some type since that time. And
you are a gun nut like I am, only probably more.
Some have said that.
You just came from a training, a rifle training place. I
yes.
know. I get the feeling reading the book that you know guns and you know survival tactics and things.
Well, I've studied it a good bit. Yes, sir.
And I joked with him. I joked on Facebook yesterday that if the EMP goes off while he's here in the studio, this will be a good thing for me because he knows how to survive. So anyway, all right, well, we're going to jump into this book a little bit. And Bobo, you got a family. In fact, your son's in the studio here with us.
Yes, this is my youngest son with us, and I have two older boys and 3 grandchildren, and my wife is back home in Alabama.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm hoping to get down there and meet your whole family one of these days.
That'd be great.
And when you become a best-selling, New York Times best-selling author, I'm hoping you'll bring me down.
I'll treat you out to dinner.
Yeah, dinner at least. All right. All right. Well, before we're going to get into this, and I'm going to ask you to tell our audience what an EMP is in just a second. But I want to read a verse here, or a couple of verses for the audience out of 2 Timothy chapter 3. After all, I am a prophecy preacher. Prophecy is my main thing. And this is a prophecy program. Most of what we talk about here is end-time events and where we are on the prophetic clock. But I really believe that this is pertinent to that very thing. He says in the book that, he says about the book, it's not a tribulation book. This is not a book about the tribulation period, but it could be. The events that happen in these books are something that very well could happen before or right after the rapture. So I want to read a passage here in 2 Timothy chapter 3, a very familiar passage to anybody who loves prophecy. It says this, "This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come." That word perilous comes from the root word peril. And what he's saying is danger. That's what peril is, danger. So in the last days, perilous or dangerous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, and on it goes, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. Brother Jeff, when I read your book, first thing I thought was this passage could be the theme for your whole book series. Is this passage right here?
Yes, sir. Yes,
because
sir.
that's what I see in your book taking place, unfolding, is ungodliness and covetousness and wickedness and I mean, it's almost like good has been taken away and the evil just swarms. Now there's some good in your book too, and there's some good people. And it's very interesting to watch how their lives all intertwine and how they react to all these problems. But well, let's jump right into this now. And by the way, we're going to do a second program, so we won't get real far today. But Jeff's going to stay, and we're going to talk. We're going to do a second YouTube program that you'll be able to watch later. And but we're going to get as far as we can today. But first of all, many of you out there are saying, what in the world are you talking about? What is an EMP? And so first of all, just as simply as you can to an audience that maybe is not an electrician or not a master electrician, help us understand in layman's terms what is meant by an EMP explosion.
Okay, well, an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. And it's a byproduct of a nuclear explosion.
Okay.
Now, lots of nuclear explosions that happen near the ground all have EMPs. However, the explosion is low, so the coverage area for an EMP is very small.
Mm-hmm.
But if the explosion is high in the atmosphere, then the coverage area for an electromagnetic pulse is very large. So there's a potential, if an explosion was high in the atmosphere above the central United States, of a very large nuclear explosion, to send this pulse out over the United States. And the thought by many experts is that this pulse will damage electronic circuits, many of them beyond repair. And there's some theories that some who think that even the transformers, the large transformers, would be damaged as well. But regardless,
in other words, the electric grid.
The electric grid, and regardless of whether the transformers are damaged, the control systems will be damaged. Which, basically everything right now, most things are controlled by electronics and computers. So if that goes down, you're not going to be generating power. You're not going to be manufacturing pretty much anything.
Right. So an EMP is almost like a big surge of power that fries the electric components.
Correct. In fact, you wouldn't even know if we were asleep at night and the explosion happened during the night, regardless of where you live, unless you maybe if you were right near the where the explosion is high in the atmosphere, you wouldn't even know it happened.
Right, and I've heard that. I've heard that you won't see it or hear it.
You won't see it or hear it.
Your power goes out, and you'll just figure, well, the power's out, it'll be back on, but it don't come back on.
Correct.
You go out to your car, the car won't start.
The car won't crank.
You pick up your phone to call somebody, and your phone's dead.
Your phone's dead.
So, starting to see how serious this can be. I mean, how would we survive without our phone? I mean, look at... Well, and I'm guilty of it too. That phone is my whole business is run on that thing.
Correct. There's a lot of information on there.
And you think, well, I'll call my sister. I'll call my son across town. No, you can't call them. So how do you communicate? So communication's gone. Your transportation's gone. Your refrigerator's not working. So anything, your freezer, refrigerator, anything that has to be chilled I mean, you got a day or so, I guess, before if you quit opening the door, on the refrigerator, but eventually your food's going to be no good. You can't get to Walmart, but Walmart's not open anyway. There's no power at Walmart. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what happens with this EMP. So your book, tell us about the book. That's what your book's about, right? Your books are about, it's not about the tribulation, even though I think what throws people is the apocalypse. First thing I thought, in fact, I saw you online. That's how I found you. And you remember, I emailed you or contacted you or something. At first I thought it was some kind of a tribulation book, and I was very interested. But when I found out it wasn't, I'm very interested in the EMP also. Because I think it's a viable thing. I think it's a threat. I think... now I realize Korea is making peace with us now, but I think was it Joab did that, and he grabbed Abner by the beard and stabbed him while he was making peace with Abner. We better be careful about that.
Things are fluid.
Yeah,
and they aren't always as they seem.
Yeah, that the leader of North Korea. I mean, does he have full control? I mean, how does he know somebody's not getting ready to do something now? So, the books are not about the rapture and the tribulation, although it is mentioned in here. And there is Christian things in the book. There are people, they pray. The main characters are all born-again people. They talk about the Lord a little bit. But it's not a book just for Christians. This is a book that I believe is for our day. There's a little write-up on the back of the book. You can go online and read that. So tell us a little bit about the book. It's a book about an EMP going off and how it affects the lives of people. Give us a little summary of what these books are about.
Well, I believe there's three aspects to being prepared. There's spiritual, mental, and physical. And what I've tried to do with the book series is provide really a hard-hitting, fast-paced story of survival. And it basically follows two families as they survive after an EMP. Mm-hmm. Now, as you mentioned, the main characters are Christian, and their faith impacts how they react to the events unfolding around them and how they interact with each other. But it's not a preachy book. So I wrote it in an effort to reach a wide audience, to help people prepare themselves for difficult times, and that's the reason I wrote the book. And it's a hard-hitting book. It's going to be some tough things in this book. I'm not sugarcoating a lot of things, but I'm just trying to make people aware of the potential of what could happen. We saw how fast things deteriorated in New Orleans after Katrina. Yeah. And that was a very localized, short-term event. And it was just a matter of hours before chaos started reigning there. Right. An EMP would be on an exponential scale above that, because it would be national. Well, it depends. It actually depends where the EMP happens. But it has the potential to be such a scale that there is no help coming. Right. You're not going to call the police, because
you can't turn your radio on to find out what's going on, because there's no power, there's no radio. Even better, I mean, there's nobody broadcasting. There's no way to find out even what happened. Like today, we get 24-hour news today. I mean, everything is on the, I mean, it's real time. But in an EMP attack, all of a sudden you're sitting in your house or you're in your car on the side of the highway. You don't even know what happened. You just know your car don't run, or you're home and the power went out. You're trying to call people and you realize your phone don't work. And then in the story, your characters all had some training, or they had parents that warned them about this kind of stuff. And so they put 2 and 2 together pretty fast and realized, you know, this sounds like that EMP just happened. That's where it gets serious. So tell us a little bit more here.
Well, there's 3 in the first book. There's 3 main characters. There's a Jack, a Jill, and a John. Jack, Jill, and
Jack and Jill and John.
Jack, Jill, and John. And Jack and Jill got their names from the nursery rhymes, in case you're wondering. But when I first started writing, I wasn't really writing a book. I was trying to help some family and friends think about being better prepared for difficult times.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, I've been studying this topic for a long time. And I like to think that I'm a prepared person, even though I'm not prepared as much as I would like to be. So I just started throwing some questions out on Facebook, you know, some what-if questions. And there was a lot of questions coming back to me from my family and friends. So I thought I'd tell a short story to perk their interest in it. And then I just kept writing. I kept getting a response, and then we're here with this book. Now the book is a fictional story, but it's a potential scenario of how people might react should such a cataclysmic event occur. And it's got a lot of information weaved into the story, because when I was writing it, I was trying to help my friends think about being prepared.
Right. And
they were asking me questions, and I said, well, I'll put it into the story as part of the story. You know, mindset. And the book's written completely in the first person from each of the main characters' perspective. So you'll have to watch that as you look at the chapter titles. The main character of that chapter, their name will appear in the chapter title. And
right, it'll say Jill, day 1, or something like that.
Right, and you're getting Jill's perspective. You're getting what's going through her mind, or John or Jack. And I'm trying to do that so the reader can get the mindset. And it also pulls you into the story. And when you're sitting when Jill's at the campfire and she's talking to another person there, it's not, I don't want you way outside looking in. I want you sitting next to her.
Yeah.
And the same when some of the intense situations come up. I want your heart beating. So you
there's times where a chapter ends where someone's getting ready to die, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, and all of a sudden you turn the page and it goes back to John or someone else, and you're waiting, well, what's going on? And then it shows what happens with him, and he steps in and saves the day at the last minute. It's just like watching a movie on TV. Very, very exciting, but also very, very blunt. I mean, there's some rough stuff in these books.
Yes, in some of it, I've had some people say, you know, it's too much. But I'm trying to drill the point home that things will get bad, just as the perilous times, as you just read. We live in a relatively peaceful times right now.
I think there's somebody shot and killed in the first chapter or second chapter.
Yeah, it's things can get intense really quick. And in any breakdown of society, if you'll look back in the news and or even in history, when society breaks down, lawlessness reigns. And when lawlessness reigns, bad people run amok.
And that's what happens.
Yes. And when you think about all communications is gone, most vehicles will not run. There will be no more 911.
Yeah.
There will be no phone calls to the police or for ambulance services. Most hospitals will shut down. So it's a worst case scenario, and I'm trying to make that very clear in the book.
Now, in the next program, we're gonna have you share some things that the audience maybe ought to start thinking about doing and preparing for. we've only got a few more minutes in this program, but there's 4 main characters that I noticed: Jill and John, and then her daughter and his son. Correct. And by the way, there's a love story, 2 love stories in the books. I don't want to give anything away, but I've already read them, and very exciting. And boy, just good love stories too. Everybody likes a love story. And but I wanted to ask you, the people in the book are all fictitious, right?
Correct.
Is there some people? See, I think this happens somewhere around your home area, right? These are places you're familiar with.
Right. I needed to write that because my first audience were people local to me. Right. And
so you wrote about places where that were familiar to you.
Yes.
So, but I know that people are fictitious. But did you? I asked your son this earlier, and he's here in the studio, but you can't see him. But I asked him while you was getting changed. I was trying to pick a little bit. I said, does anyone in the story, maybe the name's not right, but is there some of these people that are real in your mind a little bit?
Well,
maybe you don't want to tell us.
Well, the story's not about me, even though I put some of me into the story, but I put a lot of other people that I know, and I put a lot of my son into the story. So I gotta admit, when you get into one part of the story, I did put a combination of 2 characters in there because they gave me a hard time one time. So they both did, so I had to take care of them.
My wheels are turning now. I'm trying to think who that might have been, but there were so many people got whacked in there though. Hard to pick which ones, but I wrote this down to ask you. You seem to stay away from the big cities, and you dwelt with the happenings in the book some of them were good-sized places, but there was no Chicago, New York City, no Los Angeles. Tell us why.
Well, the main reason is I'm not familiar with those areas, and I couldn't write about those areas because I really don't have a lot of knowledge about them. I wrote about areas.
And them's Yankees up there.
I guess that's what they are.
Yeah, I used to be one of them.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of good people up there. I've had lots of people from up north contact me about that. And it's amazing the number of people, like-minded people, all over this country. There's lots of good people all over. And it
may be too late, but there's a revival of patriotism and
yes, there is,
bringing America back to what it used to be. It may be too late. I don't know, but
I was with some guys today, or this past week, and they were from Indiana and Illinois and Colorado and Texas and Florida, and they're like-minded people, and it's been a very rewarding experience meeting or talking to so many different people. But the big cities will be a tough place.
The big cities
is very
that almost be. We were talking about this before we recorded the program. We were talking out in the living room about that. Can you imagine being in New York City or Chicago or any place like that when this happens, and the lights go out, and the power goes out, and the cell phone's gone, no police to call, and you give that a few hours or a few days.
Well, you got New Orleans. You see what happened in New Orleans in just a few hours.
And you're talking about Katrina.
Talking about Katrina afterwards, and
there was riots.
And I was supposed to be at a meeting at the convention center that next day. We had a big conference going to go on there. It got canceled because of Katrina, but that's where a lot of that bad stuff happened, and that was a very safe area 2 days before Katrina, and then afterwards it became a nightmare for a lot of people. But writing a story escaping from a big city would be a really good story.
That'd be a book in itself.
That's right. It would be.
Escaping from New York. Isn't there a movie about that or something?
Yeah, no.
But just imagine. I mean, isn't it true that the average person has 3 days' food in their house? Or I think a grocery store's got basically 3 days' food.
I'd like to ask the people listening, consider what you have in your house. How many times do you stop at the store to buy food?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are well prepared. Some are kind of prepared, and some stop at Walmart or the grocery store every day and pick up what they're going to cook for supper.
Yeah. We're not ready.
No, we're not.
The American people are not ready.
And that's what I'm trying to do, is wake people up to the need to be ready.
All right. Now let me say this, because we're gonna shut this down. We're gonna do the next program. You don't want to miss, because we're gonna show you some things you need to be prepared. And by the way, to be prepared for an EMP, it's hard to do. But if you can somewhat get prepared for this, you'd be prepared for anything, wouldn't you? I mean, a power outage or riots in the street, or something like that. A storm, even like a tornado or hurricane or something. I'm afraid people aren't even prepared for things like that. But we're going to come back in the next program and talk more about Brother Jeff's book, some things in the book. I've got more questions that I want to ask him. And but we're also going to give in the book, and I think it's in book 1, but I can't remember. There's a whole page where they go through their backpack. And one thing you'll learn when you read his book is how important the pack is that they carry. And they actually had those in their vehicle. Both Jill and John had that pack ready for an emergency, so that they had it's like a survival kit. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to share some things that he, I think on purpose, you categorized what was in the pack.
Yes.
And I'm guessing from what you just said a while ago, that was on purpose to let people know those are some things maybe you ought to think about getting. All right, to get your tell them where they can get their book, Once Upon an Apocalypse.
Well, most people go to Amazon to purchase the book. It's available in hardback, paperback, ebook, and audio. You can get the audio from iTunes as well as Audible.
Okay, and that's where I did Audible.
Yes.
I don't know if it was iTunes, but I listened to all 3 books on Audible. It was great. Yeah. By the way, there's 2 people doing it, a lady and a man, who read the Audible story.
Yeah, they actually
great job.
Voice. They do it's kind of almost like a voice drama.
Yeah.
Really,
you're just on the edge of your seat.
Right. It's different. You get a different feel when a woman is performing a woman's part, and it gets emotional, than if a man's trying to do a woman's voice.
And I'll tell you another trick. I turned the speed up a little bit so that I could listen to it a little faster, because I wanted to get through them, because I wanted to interview you, and I wanted to get through the book. So I actually fasted the speed a little bit. You can do that with Audible. You can't do that with a paperback, but you can do that when you're listening. So that's pretty helpful. You may not have realized
I
that.
didn't know that.
Yep, you can get it going too fast, or you can't hit, but you can choose a speed, and you can actually read like let's say it's 12 hours time. You can speed that up and get through it in 9 hours. So very interesting. So in other words, if you'd like to check out the book, just go to Amazon, and up in the search bar just type in Once Upon an Apocalypse, or type in his name,
my name in.
Jeff Mote, M-O-T-E-S. And down the bottom of the YouTube page, I'll put some information there for you too as well. He has a Facebook page, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And we'll put those links at...
Yep, we'll put the links on there for his Facebook page. But basically, just go to the search bar and type in Once Upon an Apocalypse. I think 2 guys come up, you and
a horror.
A horror story guy. So, careful.
You'll see the difference. My picture is a picture of me and my wife on our books page. Now, I have a personal page too. You're welcome to go to it, but book-related information is really kept on my.
Well, good. We've gone over just a few minutes. I was trying to keep this down to 25 minutes. We've gone over a few, but you're listening to the God's Final Jubilee program. I'm your host, Evangelist Dan Goodwin. This is my new friend, Jeff Mote, who's written a trilogy, a fiction story about real events that could come to pass, and some real things that you can do to prepare for bad times, like this. And go to Amazon, look him up. Go to his Facebook page. You can get all the information you want right there. And I think you can go straight to his book right from his Facebook page. So, alrighty. Well, it's been a joy to be with you, Brother Jeff.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're going to stay over. We're going to record another program. And you out there, if you just finished this one, you'll be watching in the next little bit. We'll get that other program up for you. So, all right. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.